Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back checking out another of these brand new Recur releases, and as you can see, we've got Triceratops Marsh, and I must say I love the name Marsh for very obvious reasons, but you can see the packaging looks really nice. You've got a beautiful shot of the Triceratops here on the front of the packaging, and again, the name and everything over here, and then up here on the top, Recur, on the side, basically not really much going on, pretty much the same as the Mosasaurus box, but it is a beautiful box, honestly. Very nice, very high quality. So it's kind of like a slip cover, and then you pull the inside out, and that's where our figure would lie. So as you move the box open, just to kind of give you a sneak peek of how everything looks inside, you can see there's a really nice card attached in there, and then the figure very nice and safely packaged. So I'm going to pop this Triceratops out, and then we're going to check it out from there. So here is our card straight out of the packaging and looking really quite nice. Obviously, you can see we've got a really cool image of the Triceratops there, and then if we turn it around, we have some information on the Triceratops and everything, as well as telling us it is 1/35th scale and stuff like that. Here on the back, of course, the Recur logo as always, and like I said in the Mosasaurus review, you can see the card is really nice, very high quality, definitely some thickness to it. So, you know, on top of improving, I think, the quality of their figures, they've also given us really high quality cards. And then here is our Triceratops in all of its glory, and that thing is absolutely beautiful if you ask me. The sculpt of this is definitely one of the nicest looking Triceratops I think I've seen in quite some time, and on top of that, the paint apps look really cool. It's one of those situations where I feel like they kind of thought outside the box as far as what we often see as far as coloration on Triceratops goes, so definitely a huge plus as far as that goes. So overall, I'm already quite impressed. Let's jump to a closer look and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Triceratops, you can instantly see how nice looking the skin texture is. It's very vibrant. I think the overall quality of these figures, on top of, you know, the material improving, just generally the detail has improved. You can see again how nice it just pops on the sculpt overall. There's also some nice coloration applied to this one, as we've got kind of like a yellowish brown for the primary body color, and then we also have lighter and darker shades of brown as you move through the course of the head of the Triceratops. You've got the mouth sculpted in an open position. We can see the nostrils sculpted out right there. You can see that we have the beak sculpted nicely. There's a darker brown there for the beak, kind of similar darker brown that we see through a large portion of the head. If we take a look inside the mouth, we can see the tongue sculpted out in there, and it also is painted with a pinkish tone, if my camera would stay focused on it. You can also see, again, if it would focus correctly, there's a nice gloss coat there for the tongue, giving it a very realistic shine. And we can see, again, that gloss coat extends there to the upper side of the inside of the mouth of the Triceratops. It does also have yellow eyes and a nice black pupil, which is good to see. On top of that, as you lead up into the horns of our Triceratops, there are some very nice kind of like cracks and crevices applied to all three horns, and I love how smooth it transitions from the brown that starts out the horns to the yellowish tone as we lead out. And you wouldn't expect yellow to look so good on a Triceratops, but in my opinion, it absolutely does look very good on this. As you move up here into the frill, on top of the very nice looking skin texture, you can see again the variations of browns that have been applied, and the transitions back and forth between those browns are really smooth. You can also see a very different style to the skin texture as you move up into the frill, but also again equally as vibrant when it comes to the detail of the sculpt itself. We've got like some scoots moving down the center from the top of the frill down to the center of the head between the horns there, and they also lead out on each of these areas again of the frill. You can also see a dark brown as well as a like a circular dark brown, and then another spot inside that area, which gives you a really cool pattern up there in the frill. Again, you know, just creating a nice element of flashiness without being too flashy for the figure. Moving down here into the lower jaw, again, the skin texture looks really, really nice. You've got more variation to the scales as you got larger and smaller scales in that area. Moving back into the neck of the Triceratops, you can see the throat down here really nicely sculpted. Also some nice skin wrinkles and stuff as you lead up there back behind the head. If we actually lead up there and take a look at the back of the frill, as the back hits the camera, you can see again nice variations of browns back here. If you look at the back of the neck, same thing. As you move along the top of the Triceratops, you do have the same similar brown that we have for a large portion of the head. Moving along the back here of the dinosaur, you can also see, and it's super subtle as far as the way it's applied, but there is a dark wash applied to the figure. Some areas it's a little bit easier to pick up on than others. I can definitely see it in a few areas here moving along the back. On top of the scale detail up here, you can see again a good healthy dose of osteoderms and larger scales, especially as you move into the thigh of the Triceratops. But as you lead back up here, you can see the shoulder protruding from the skin quite a bit, and I think that's a nice little touch right there, because you can see this foot is actually picking up off of the ground, so it's basically just kind of showing how the leg is moving as the dinosaur is taking a step. You've got this nice brown here moving along, and again with this brown up here, you can see it's outlined with a darker brown. You see the same thing here as far as these stripes that move along the side of the body. You've got like a lighter brown in the center and then a darker brown that outlines it. Moving into the stomach, you can also see again similar to what we see in the thigh with those larger scales right here, but then they become finer as you move down. And again, you can see that wash, that dark wash at play in quite a few areas. Like I said, really subtle with the way it's applied, but it definitely helps to highlight the detail. As you move down into the foot, you can see we transition again to a brown. You can't see perfectly because it won't focus. Again, the toes are sculpted quite nicely. We do have nails painted with a nice glossy black. And again, the wrist and everything looks good as far as the sculpt goes. Nice wrinkling and creasing in the wrist. Obviously, as I had mentioned, the dinosaur's picking that foot up. It could be either taking a step or maybe kicking up some dirt in a defensive display. Hard to really tell, but kind of has the visual of both. As you look here at the legs, you can see how the skin is stretching off of the stomach, again, on both of the legs because they're kind of spread further apart. And then as you move down through the course of the thigh, again, the musculature looks really good. Definitely looks like a really healthy, really strong Triceratops. Moving down, you've got the knee right there. You've got the calf muscle in the back of the leg. Again, transitioning to a brown. You can also see, transitioning to a brown as you move down to the foot, but you can also see again how the toes are just touching and this rear foot is just picking up off of the ground a little bit. Again, the toes look really quite nice. You've got the nails painted with a nice glossy black, and you can see like a lighter brown here that transitions to an even darker brown as you move down into the foot. You can also see some light pinkish tones showing up in a few different areas for the Triceratops as well. You can see how the skin is stretching off of the thigh, moving back into the tail. We continue to have that variation of a brown moving along the top of the Triceratops the entire way out into the tail, with that dark brown kind of following along. Then you've got the yellowish tone for the body color as well as the pinkish tones picking up as you move along. Again, the skin texture looks really good here on the underside of the Triceratops as well. You still have more of those pinkish tones like showing up under the legs in a few different areas here moving along the underside of the Triceratops. And if we turn the dinosaur around, again, the head sculpt looks really nice over here. The eyes are painted yet again very nice and carefully. Very smooth transitions. Really nice paintwork, honestly, on these newer Recur figures. They are just gorgeous, if you ask me, when it comes to the paintwork. You can see tensing in the neck right there as well. The dinosaur has its head turned a little bit toward its right, so it gives you a little bit of a better visual of the neck, which you can see again, the tensing. You can also make out the dark wash right there that I was speaking of. But as you move back into the body, nothing is really going to look too different over on this side, except for the fact that both legs are kind of, pushed together now because of the positioning of the dinosaur, kind of scrunching the skin in the stomach region up a little bit right there. But as you move through, you can still see again how incredible the actual sculpt of this is and how much insanely nice fine detail is to be found on this Triceratops. Even up here, you can even see just a little bit more variation of browns, like a darker brown kind of following along the spinal column of the dinosaur as well. So that is definitely one really nice looking Triceratops. As far as the size goes, for a length from the tail to the beak, you are looking at about 8¼ inches or 21 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point would definitely be that horn, pretty much 4 inches on the dot or around 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Recur Triceratops, and you can get a pretty good idea, I think, of the size of the figure here now with these all together. And again, obviously, showing you that it's not a gigantic Triceratops, but in 1/35th scale, this is pretty much the size range I would expect it to be in. For a few more comparisons, we have the Papo Triceratops, which is probably one of the most iconic, overall when it comes to Triceratops figures, next to the Recur version, which you can see the Recur version is a little bit smaller than the Papo version. Then when it comes to classics, they don't get much more classic than the Invicta Triceratops, which you can now see the Recur wins in the size department. Then as we continue to kind of trade places, we have the TNG Triceratops, which you can now see is just a little bit bigger than the Recur version. We've also got the older version of the PNSO Triceratops, which again is just a little bit bigger than the Recur version. We also have the Toy Wave version of the Triceratops. Again, now this time we're a little bit smaller than the Recur version. As well as the Beasts of the Mesozoic Subadult Triceratops, which now has gone back to being a little bit bigger than Recur. And the final comparison I have is actually the older version of the Triceratops from Recur. Obviously, the older version was a bit bigger, but what I really wanted to accomplish by bringing this figure in was to show you how amazing the transition is from one figure to the other, from the older version of the Triceratops to the modern version of the Triceratops from Recur. You can really see just how much they've improved, right here from this image of these two figures next to each other. So this brand new Recur Triceratops is absolutely awesome, just like the Mosasaurus was, and I feel like that might be a continuing trend with these new Recur figures, and I couldn't be happier about that because I feel like Recur are finally going to get the respect and honestly acknowledgement that they deserve, because they are one of the leading producers of dinosaur figures and have been for a very long time, but they're now really coming into their own as far as scientifically accurate dinosaurs go. With the Mosasaurus, now this Triceratops, again, it's just going to keep getting better and better, I think. The Triceratops is absolutely awesome. The sculpt, again, is super highly detailed, taking the type of detail I would expect on a Recur figure and then just amping it up by a mile. Like, these new figures are just unbelievably highly detailed, and the sculpt is super vibrant as far as the detail as well. The paint looks really quite nice on this one. I think it's a very cool color scheme that's quite different than most Triceratops that I've seen. It all looks pretty good as far as the application of it goes. It's nice and natural, and the figure has a nice dark wash, but it's like super subtle as far as the way it's applied. But it definitely helps to add a little bit of an element of realism to the figure. And again, all of the transitions are really nice and smooth, very naturalistic. Everything seems to be painted with the absolute most care possible. Like, you can just see it, everywhere from like the mouth to the eyes to the toenails. Everything looks great when it comes to the paintwork. The pose is also nice because you can look at it as it being, just a walking Triceratops, or maybe a defensive display with it kicking up some dirt. Either way, it's very nicely done on top of everything. So if you are interested in grabbing this for yourself, I, of course, will include a link in the description to where you can do that right now. So make sure you pick this up, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.